morning, everyone. My name is Anna Grace Johnson, and I am going to be talking about globalization's impact on terrorism. So let's start out by asking ourselves, what is globalization and what is terrorism? The World Bank defines globalization as the global circulation of goods, services, and capital, but also of information, ideas, and people. The World Bank believes that terrorism represents the unlawful use of force or violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof, in furtherance of political or social objectives. In the book Terrorism from Above and Below in the Age of Globalization, Asafa Jalata defines terrorism as a systematic governmental or organizational policy through which lethal violence is practiced openly or covertly to impose terror on a given population group, their institutions or symbols, or their representative members in order to change their behavior of political resistance to domination or their behavior of domination for political and economic gains or other reasons. So now that we know exactly what globalization and terrorism are, we can begin to ask how globalization's impact on terrorism has evolved. Globalization has allowed all countries to connect with each other through trade, the internet, and the ability to travel. The internet has allowed goods, services, and knowledge to flow much more easily from place to place. Also, governments have reduced barriers that have allowed for the development of domestic markets and their link to the international economy. Now you may be thinking, what's wrong with globalization? We have access to anything and everything, but that's the problem. We may have access to the internet, information, and people, however, terrorists do too. And they are able to use these resources to their advantage to achieve exactly what they need. One of the most helpful resources for terrorists that came from globalization was the internet. Technology has allowed terrorists to hack very easily and carry out their attacks. Furthermore, weapons significantly help aid the terrorists in bringing about mass destruction. Globalization's impact on terrorism is first shown on September 11, 2001. On this day, 4 commercial airliners were hijacked by Al-Qaeda terrorists from various airports along the eastern seaboard in a coordinated terrorist attack on the United States. 2 of the airliners hit the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. Another airliner hit the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, and the last airliner crashed into a field near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Over 3,000 Americans and foreigners lost their lives to these terrorist attacks. This event constituted the largest loss of civilian life from a criminal act in the history of the United States. The Al-Qaeda terrorist group's intentions were to influence or affect the conduct of government by intimidation or coercion. The Al-Qaeda hijackers used the internet to find potential targets for the attack, nuclear weapon facilities, and how to construct explosives. The terrorists were successfully able to transform commercial jets into war machines that terrorized citizens of the United States and committed horrific crimes against humanity. Although 9/11 was a horrific and awful event, it has allowed the world to come together and fight against terrorists. As shown by 9/11, the spread of technology has empowered less powerful actors such as Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. Nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons are spreading around the world, creating catastrophic terrorism. In 2000, the value of world merchandise exports exploded by more than 12%, and trade and services exploded by 6.1%. These were more than triple the previous year's growth rate. Foreign direct investment increased from $1.8 trillion in 1999 to $1.27 trillion in 2000. In 2000, there was the most expansive growth in global tourism in at least a decade, and the number of internet posts grew by 44%. As you can see, there was a huge explosion in global economic flows and political engagement, as well as the increased mobility of people, information, and ideas. The expansive growth of global tourism and the boost in internet hosts were extremely beneficial for terrorists. Technology has greatly impacted terrorist ability to connect with people throughout the world and has allowed them to hack the government as well as other important organizations and sites. ISIS has taken advantage of the internet, more specifically social media, to persuade people throughout the world to join their cause. This brings us to the question of, how does ISIS use globalization of technology to their advantage? ISIS falsely advertises their lifestyle online, making it seem inclusive and nonviolent. Children are included in the videos to make women feel safer about joining and to further assure them. Young Western women depart to Syria to join ISIS because of the maternal feeling they get to help and to be with the children. ISIS's propaganda on the internet has persuaded over 3,000 citizens of the West in its ranks, including people from Germany, France, and all across Europe to join their cause. ISIS has also used trade to attract mercenaries throughout the world. In 2011, ISIS was able to sell oil to Turkey and get arms from Saudi Arabia, the EU, and the United States because of the widespread expansion of free global trade. These communications on the internet and through trade has attracted over 30,000 volunteer mercenaries from across North America, Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. These supporters of ISIS are easily able to join them because of the globalization of travel. ISIS has successfully achieved their globalization of terrorism through social media, allowing them to brainwash younger individuals. ISIS also preys on younger women with insecurities and identity crises, which has allowed radicalization to be more successful. So now that we know how ISIS and Al-Qaeda use globalization to their advantage, we can begin to question how they are similar and different with their uses. Both ISIS and Al-Qaeda have used the internet to their advantage to spread their cause and to gain supporters. However, ISIS and Al-Qaeda operate in very different ways. ISIS uses social media to illustrate gruesome content that shows that they have no bounds, whereas Al-Qaeda has a more civil approach, where they upload lectures to YouTube and publish a magazine titled Inspire. ISIS has developed an app called Dawn of Tidings, allowing users to sync Twitter accounts to post propaganda messages through statuses, photos, and video. This app is so advanced that it can even outmaneuver Twitter algorithms that monitor terrorist organizations which promote violence. To prevent terrorists taking advantage of the internet, the FBI created a program where informants monitor online behavior and seek out potential ISIS recruits. This program has allowed FBI informants to capture potential recruits at the airport before boarding planes abroad. The United States was able to pinpoint locations of major satellites and destroy them, forcing ISIS members to use less secure internet connections, facilitating access to more information. The importance of online counterterrorism efforts illustrate how the spread of internet and social media have revolutionized the way terrorist organizations operate and the way the United States and other nations combat terrorism. In order to decrease the influence of terrorism, we must lessen the easy accessibility globalization has chosen to increase security, enforce stricter regulations on potential recruits, and increase military capabilities through drone strikes to decrease terrorism. The United States chose to take a realistic approach towards this problem, which has allowed them and their allies to foresee military conflicts involving multiple terrorist organizations in the future. Terrorists may be making the rules of globalization stricter. However, globalization is helping to decrease the influence of terrorism. There will always be terrorists in this world, so we must learn to work together to diminish their influence to the best of our ability. We must find a happy medium for globalization and come to realize that not all aspects of globalization are good. And lastly, globalization has influenced terrorism, but we can diminish its influence. Thank you.